Alrighty, well, welcome to Unwrapping the Dumpling. We are a podcast where we unwrap the topic of stigma within the Asian community on mental health. So today we're doing kind of a deep dive on the lack of Asian American professionals in the mental health care. And, we believe that one of the best ways to lessen stigma is to really have representation and have those who look like us to educate and speak to not only us, but also our parents, family, and communities on the importance of mental health. So I just want to start off with sharing some facts. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services of Minority Health, in 2022, suicide was the leading cause of death for Asians ages 15 to 24. So truly, when mental health is not spoken about, in the household, we don't know how to deal with them when the issues arise. And also, according to the National Institute of Healthcare Management Foundation, 80% of psychologists were white, 3% were Asian, and 82% of mental health counselors were white, 1% were Asian. And lastly, 65% of social workers are white and 1% is Asian. So that, just to give you a comparison to the actual, according to the 2020 census, the American population has 58% white and 6% Asian. So there's kind of a big difference between the percentage of us in healthcare, which is ranging from 1% to 3%, to the actual percentage of Asians in the population, which is around 6%. And really, through personal experiences, goals, and job prospects, and why we want to pursue a career in mental health is really what we want to talk about today. And we'll lead into another episode where we talk about really how we want to solve that difference and what we can do about it. So I just want to do some personal introductions. I'm going to go through everyone here, just kind of introduce themselves. My name is Tim. I am a psychology major, and I am a third year, which is also first year transfer. My career goals, I want to do a PsyD when I graduate and hopefully focus on clinical psych. Eventually having my own practice and doing some consulting on the side. And we will start off introductions with our special guest today, Lillian, and we'll go from there.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Lillian. I'm also a psych major. I am a transfer senior. I just recently had a career crisis, so I'm not sure what I will do with my degree yet, but hopefully something along the lines with, servicing our community and then having my own practice as well.
That's amazing. See you out there.
Oh, that means we're going to be competing with each other.
That's fine.
Oh, for clients. Just kidding.
All right, Bryan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Bryan. I'm a first year transfer, third year junior here, I guess. But I'm a sociology major. What I want to do with my career, I've a little retrospect, now you're having me have a crisis, but yeah. I was thinking about doing some pre-law or I wanted to do family law, but I've been thinking about doing other things as well. But right now, that's what my primary focus is right now. Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Ms. Jocelyn.
Hi guys, I'm Jocelyn. I'm also a fourth year. I'm a cognitive science and communications major, and I just recently switched into wanting to do clinical psych, but I'm hearing a lot of things, so I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm also hoping on doing for now. Also thinking about opening a clinic. But that's
more competition.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why can't we all just work together?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
so why don't we just have one office with different... I like this. I like this idea.
Split the profits.
Oh, we don't have to split the profits.
Oh, okay.
Well, no. This way we can have one office manager.
Caseloads.
Yep.
Manifesting it right now, guys.
I think it'd be great. And remember, I'm going to have a tea shop in front of mine, so we can just all share the tea.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be called Spill the Tea. I'm telling you, it's going to be great.
And
then we're going to be in the back.
It's going to be business and mental health.
Yes,
Love that.
absolutely.
Okay, there you go.
So with today, since we have our special guest here, she's actually the co-president of the CultivAsian Club, Lillian over here. So we have invited her here to kind of ask her some questions and doing some deep dive into really her thoughts on mental health, her career, and just understanding her more in hopes of us understanding the industry as well. So we'll have Jocelyn take over and asking her some questions, and we'll also, chime in a little bit and hopefully have a great open conversation.
Yeah, so thank you for being here with us, Lillian. We're just going to get started. So why do you think we have a lack of Asian mental health workers?
I always feel like this is like an interrogation.
And we start off heavy.
Start off heavy. What was the question again?
Why do you think we have a lack of Asian mental health workers? So not just mental health workers, but specifically Asian mental health workers.
Yeah, the stats was astonishing.
Yes.
Like 1%, 6%.
1% to 6%, or 6% of the population, but out of all psychology or out of all mental health workers, we're ranging between 1% to 3%.
Single digits, low single
very,
digits.
very low single digits.
I think something that we kind of talked about too is, right, the concept just doesn't exist in our culture. I think that's one. Like, if you don't know what mental health is, if that doesn't register in your mind, it's not in the culture. Like, we don't, like, how do you say this? Families don't promote you, like, encourage you to seek help. They think that whatever happens within the family stays in the family, right? Because of 家家有本难念的经. I don't know if you like, you know that what that means, but it's like a, you know, like a traditional Chinese culture thing. And I believe other collectivist culture also have that. So that's one factor. And I think the second factor is that it's just not profitable. We also talk about it off camera too, about how, like, you know, traditional Asian families, they want you to go to law, for instance, because it's like a secure path, or pre-med or engineering. How are you going to make money by, you know, become a psychologist or therapist? I'm still wondering that too. It's like, how am I going to make money out of that, right? If I want to live like, okay. So I think that's a second factor. And I'm trying to think if there's a third factor. If I can't, we can cut it off here.
Yeah, but I think it like your first factor, you were talking about how like it's not really a concept within the Asian community, which is very interesting. Because I remember we bringing it up that, you know, it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where like we, you know, in the Western culture, we already have all the other needs, which is like food and shelter and such. And in a lot of Asian cultures, you know, in our parents' days, especially if you're an immigrant, like they didn't have a lot of those basic needs, so they couldn't worry about their mental health. And that's, you know, and so it's not a factor that's important to them. So that hasn't passed on to our generation. Like, we don't know how to take care of our mental health. We don't know where to go. So that's not a big idea at all in our cultures. So I think it is more of a Western culture as well.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a westernized concept. Because I remember when I was trying to persuade my family that I want to go to psychology, even though they don't really hate it, but they don't really fully support it either.
Yeah.
And they're just saying like, oh, they don't think that talking about your problems, like going to therapy, is going to fix the problem. Yep. And that's a common stigma too. Like, even when I talk to like my friends who don't really know what therapy is, they would be like, oh, I just don't feel like, you know, going into therapy, talking about my problems is going to make it better. Like, I want to just repress it. I just rather not keep dwelling on it, basically.
Yeah.
But then I would like try to challenge them, like, well, going to therapy doesn't mean that you're dwelling on the problem. It means that you're trying to acknowledge it, and you're trying to be courageous to own up to what you're facing and how you're feeling. And once you actually fully embrace it and then feel all the feelings, and you have that self-awareness where you got to improve, it actually moves you forward instead of like holding you back.
Yes.
But I feel like that's such a hard concept for a lot of like traditional Asian families to understand, because they just think that, oh, you just gotta, you know, like endure,
yep.
like 忍耐, like endure, and then, you know, you're gonna push past it. And it's really common in, I feel like, a lot of collectivist culture as well.
And you end up just internalizing it instead.
Yeah, I feel like it's always like a delicate balance.
Yes.
Like, yes, there are certain things that you don't have to be so picky about and like exaggerating and talking about it. And there are times where you just gotta like pick yourself up and then move on. But then there are certain times where you actually need to take the time and to like, okay, let's, you know, hold up a second and really reflect on how I feel and reflect on what this incident impacted me and how I can, you know, take away something better from it, instead of, you know, just living mindlessly, like just like kind of on autopilot mode.
Yep.
And then just not really knowing what each experience contributes to, like specifically to you, and how that like makes you a better or worse person.
Yep. Do you actually, this just came to mind, I'm sorry, this is like a cutting question. Do you think that has to do with how most Asian countries, especially China, like where they don't truly believe in like an individualistic thinking, where like you should think as a group, so you don't have that opportunity to think for yourself? I mean, do you?
No, that's my first project that I did on, is individualism versus collectivism.
Oh, look at that.
Because I feel like that is like something that I'm still trying to balance, like, because I'm raised in a collectivist culture. Now I'm here, that's super individualistic, sometimes too individualistic, I feel.
Yes.
So I would say yes to that. It's a really good point, because, you know, like in our religion, even like Buddhism, like it's always about considering like nature, right? It's going with the flow and everything. It's really, there's no emphasis on like self. Like if you really dwell deep on like researching the origins of Buddhism and their values, it actually removes the self. It says that it's too egocentric. Like your ego is where the problem comes from. is because you're so egocentric, not in a bad way, but just like because you have this self-awareness. So it creates all these problems because of certain, I don't know how to explain it, but
I see where you're getting at. Yeah.
But yeah, Buddhism itself just does not emphasize on any individual stuff. Like it's so like vague, abstract, and spiritual. So you, like, for me at least, I grew up practicing Tai Chi and practicing those values. So it really took me some time to adjust to like thinking about like, oh, what I want, like selfishly, what I value and what I want to get from this experience, instead of just always taking care of other people or like always considering other people. I feel like it's a common thing in our culture. But yeah, that's a good point. I feel like definitely culture shapes how we think. And because of how we think, then, you know, it impacts the choices we make, and we end up not having a lot of mental health workers.
I love that. Sorry for the extended answer to that.
No, I think
question.
that's a supplement. That's a supplement question. That's great.
Okay, so given all those reasons as to why people don't go into like mental health work, why did you choose to go into psychology? You know, knowing all this information.
Honestly, I'm questioning myself that right now. Like,
And that's
why?
okay.
did-
That's okay. Yeah, that's part of the journey. That's
Can
part
you
of
tell
the
it's
journey.
a table full of therapists? It's okay.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, but I remember when like I still had that drive, like I still had that passion. I still do.
Yeah.
But that all began with like, you know, personal experience, like from back in Taiwan when like my fellow classmate took his own life. That's the first time like directly I was being, you know, reminded of like life and death, and really facing with the, how do you say this? Like that was the first time that I really faced the concept of mental health and the concept of like, oh, like, you know, life and death, like someone could just disappear like this. And then adding up to my own experiences with anxiety and my family's and everything, all that, I feel like it just, life happens and it guides you to a path. I think that's what happened to me, because even along the way when I was in CC, in community college, I had friends that opened up to me about their diagnosis of depression and like bipolar and stuff. And I was like, girl, what are you telling me? Like, like, do you think that I'm like just the type of person to like talk about this? But I mean, no, that's a compliment to me, because I'm like, I feel like that experience really shaped me and kind of validate myself. Like I'm a people person, and I'm like, just, I love listening to stories. And also it feels like people trust me to like seek comfort. And I'm like, okay, like maybe this is what I'm good at. Like maybe this is the path I should go into, like, you know, connecting with people, supporting people and stuff like that. So all of that add up, and I'm like, okay, I know I love people work. I love doing this. I love talking to people. I love like just advocating for issues. So I'm like, okay, psychology seems like a pretty good path, because I could combine all of that. I could, you know, advocate for mental health awareness, but I could also like help people and like serve people, and possibly charge some money by just talking. So that's pretty easy.
Talking's tiring. Talking's tiring after a while if you don't get paid. So
no, I know, but it's like, imagine you get paid like, you know, $100 plus, like just talking. It's like, I was like, well, not too bad.
Yes.
But that's of course a financial consideration. But in general, it's like, oh, I want to do something that I feel like suits me, my personality, and that I feel like is a meaningful work. I think that's really important for me. And I know, like we talked about it too, like, you know, you've been in industry before, you're like doing something that doesn't really align with your values. It really is draining at the end. Like you don't want to you don't want to go in a career where you're like doubting yourself. Like, what is the purpose of this? Right. Yeah. I feel like this is a very purposeful work, and it's a long-term work too. Like, I don't see it being like, I don't see this field disappearing with AI or anything in the near future either.
I was just having this conversation about that. It's like, I think people want to talk to people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's going to keep our jobs for a little longer.
Yeah.
Because you can have an AI therapist now if you want to, but, you know, I think people want to talk to people.
It's human connection.
It is.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of companion stuff, Alexa, Siri, and like even just mental health apps nowadays. But I feel like it lacks that, you know, the genuine like bonding, and then like, you know, that magic of just talking to real human beings. It's just a part of our nature. Yeah. You know? So yeah, I think like all of those reasons combined, I feel like even though it's a challenging path, and, you know, I'm going to have to go through a lot of self-discovery and figuring out how financially I could be independent, and then also pushing back my family like stigma, but I think it's worth it, like for me.
Yeah, I think you're on the right path.
Or is it?
Just saying.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, now that we know how you feel about your major,
Yeah.
how do your parents feel about you pursuing psychology?
Oh dear God. Honestly, like kind of like what I said, they don't really oppose it. It's not like they super hate it, but they're not super supportive. Because I know my dad is just like, oh, I never understood why you had to choose psychology, talking to psycho people, crazy people all the time. You're just gonna be like a trash can to them and stuff. So he definitely has his negative opinions, but he keeps it to himself most of the time. And like, it's just, I don't know. They have that stigma, like stereotype that, therapy and psychology stuff is just meant for, people who are super, super, super crazy. So they don't think that, oh, doing this work is actually part of the prevention work, right? Preventing people to committing suicide, for instance, preventing people from falling into the depression hole and cannot come back. And then doing therapy could prevent you from becoming a menace from society and stuff like that. So I try to persuade them that too, there's steps to it. And then my dad would just be like, oh, okay, maybe I just don't understand this a lot. But whatever, he doesn't try to impose his values onto me, but I know that he's worried. And my mom is pretty supportive in general. Like, aside from my dad, everybody in my family seems to be okay with it. They think that, especially my grandma, because she's really Buddhist and she loves also public service. So she thinks that, okay, if you go into this job, that's good. It's good deed, right? Good deed, because you're helping people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, honestly, yeah, I feel like I could go to sleep at night feeling good about my conscience because I'm doing something that's meaningful to the world, I guess.
I agree. And it's just the same thing as you're saying. Like, it's not only about doing the same thing over and over again that gets tiring. Is also like when you do get to that day when you retire and you look back on your life and what you did, that was the deciding factor for me where I wanted to change my career and actually go into psych. Is because I couldn't look back and just be like, all I did was make money and spend it. Exactly. I wanted to do something a little bit more on the fulfilling side. And I think it's the same thing with Bryan. You wanted to pursue law, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah. I mean, it's a stable career for sure. I still don't know if it's exactly what I want to do. I just had I'm actually in this pre-law club, and I just had a talk with one of the vice presidents, but she's not even doing law because she found it not to be fulfilling.
Interesting.
She's actually pursuing what she wants to do. She's in a news channel or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She actually really loves it. But I was talking about how we come from more a immigrant family background, and it's super stigmatized that we have to do this, we have to do that, and it's this hard field. But I feel like this, doing something you're truly passionate about. It's about the idea of fulfillment,
Yeah. I love that.
Okay.
All right. Sorry for that little diversion again.
A little tangent. It's okay.
Yes.
Okay, we have one more question after this, but what does mental health mean to you? And I know you kind of answered it throughout your other answers, but yeah, go ahead.
What is mental health? I think mental health means... Such a good question. What do you guys think mental health is? Let me hear your thoughts first. I'm going to direct the question back to y'all before I answer so I could gather idea.
Any thoughts? I think it's really being able to process your feelings and doing that in a healthy manner, because like you said, a lot of our parents, they internalize a lot of their feelings.
Absolutely.
And they just kind of you're going to endure it and you're going to be fine. I think part of mental health is, yes, having that mental stability to be able to endure certain things, but also having the mental ability to process them and not let it internalize. I think that really is a true factor of having good mental health. Is not letting things bother you too much, but also letting them bother you to a certain degree and feeling those emotions and processing them, but also moving on from that.
Love that. It's kind of like what I mentioned too, right, about balance.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I just had a light bulb moment. I think mental health is acceptance to me, and about
that.
balance, kind of like what we talked about, because through my own therapy sessions, I've been realizing my approach to therapy has changed over the last few times that I've had a therapist, from fixing a problem, oh, I have anxiety, I want to fix this, I want this to go away, to honestly, maybe I could coexist with it and I've been doing fine. I should give myself credit. I should accept that I possibly do have some anxiety disorder. Actually, I do. I was diagnosed, but I just forgot for a second. Like, but also just accepting that's just part of who I am. And I think that's it's just the fundamental experience of being a human is you are flawed. Like all of us have flaws, whether it's like personality wise, like, or just, you know, your mental health quality wise, we are not perfect. And as a perfectionist who had like, I was so type A, I'm still kind of type A.
Me too.
But I've been seeing how that is very bad for me. So I'm trying to adjust my lifestyle to like, you know, being perfectionist kind of led me to really question like, why am I being perfectionist? And then to really like change my like values, like my work ethic values and everything. And then kind of going on to this path where I'm like accepting like just who I am authentically, also still figuring out who I am authentically. Kind of like overall just giving myself a little bit more space to like explore, but with like acceptance instead of just trying to solve problems. Because I used to think that, oh, I have anxiety, or like, oh, this person has some issues, you should go to therapy because you should fix it. Like you should fix your problem.
Yeah.
But I think my value now has changed a little. Like, yes, there are things that you could fix, but not everything is about trying to change, you know, that situation. But learning how to accept it, learning how to coexist, learning the tools to manage certain like emotions, or learning the tools to manage interrelationships is more important than fixing a problem, because that kind of insinuates that there's something wrong with you and that you need to change. But then it's like, yes, change is good to a certain degree, but you can't really completely change yourself because then you're not you anymore. So those are my few new thoughts about.
I love that. I love this light bulb moment.
Yeah,
That's great.
light bulb moment, because I just came from therapy actually.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, any inputs from you guys on mental health? I mean, while we're here.
I've actually been thinking about this recently since I feel
I
like
love it.
we're graduating soon.
Oh,
minus
God,
Bryan.
yeah.
But you're third year, right?
I am a third year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Minus Bryan. But I think for me, mental health, it's kind of like when the day is over and you're done running away from like everything, like, you know, all of your obligations are done. Your brain, you're finally not distracted. You're kind of just like left with yourself. And like that person inside of you that you have to like constantly be around.
Ooh, yeah.
It's kind of then when that person starts talking to you, and then what your relationship is with yourself.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Because I've been thinking about this recently. I think when people go to therapy, it's because they're trying to like, you know, fix their problems, like you said.
Yeah.
They're trying to fix their relationships with other people. But I do think that recently we treat people the way we treat ourselves. So if
Yeah.
we don't really like ourselves, we tend to not like other people.
That's so beautiful.
So
I love
think
that.
mental health for me recently has been about that relationship you have with yourself.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's kind of this idea of like you have this hyperfixation of what you like try to like show to other people. Like I should be this, I should be fit because I want people to think I look good. Da, 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 da. At the end of the day, when you go home, like who are you to yourself when you're looking in front of the mirror? You know?
Yeah. That's kind of what I was trying to get at too, because recently my therapy sessions has been just more focused on my experience instead of like my issues and my problems, but kind of like just discovering like, oh, my identity, like, oh, how that has, you know, like triggered me, like what incident and stuff. Like it's more like it's for you. The therapist there is like for you. They don't try to tell you what is right, what is wrong, what you need to do, but they try to just support you there then and there. And I think that's what's beautiful about like therapy is it's exactly what you said. Like it's how you can have that safe space to just like have a conversation with the therapist and also learning more about yourself. And I think that's great.
I just feel like there's a lot of noise nowadays, or just in general, like within media, like our friends or family.
Totally.
And it all just gets really confusing. But at the end of the day, when all that noise disappears, it's really about yourself and your relationship with
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of read this book. It's by Mel Robbins. It's called The High Five Habit.
She's the 5-second rule person, Mel Robbins. She's
I
like,
think she is.
She
Yeah.
has a
she's the one-
podcast, right?
she's the one that
Yeah.
says like anything you want to do, instead of waiting, you just count to 5 and do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
God, I've
absolutely.
never heard that.
Yeah.
She kind of approaches that book the same way. It's
Yes.
like you think about the conception of how when you want your friends to be able to succeed, you'll give them a high five, like no thought about it. You'll do this and like you'll be like, oh, hey, what's up? High five, you know? But like when you're looking at yourself and like, I don't know if I can really do this. Like, I don't know if like I don't know if this position's right for me, this job's right for me. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm doing. And she kind of like, look at yourself in the mirror, give yourself a high five. Like,
I love that.
just this idea of
Yeah.
you can do it, you know, like it's just this idea, like what I said earlier, it's like, who are you at the end of the day looking at yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Are you confident enough in yourself? Are you going to treat yourself the way you should be treated? Like,
Yeah, and I love her stuff. She was really inspiring because she really gets you to stop overthinking, and
No,
that
absolutely.
happens a lot in
Yeah.
our lives where we overthink,
I
especially
think
people
it's
with
a
anxiety.
chronic illness, modern
Yes.
thing, like
Yes.
anxiety,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like you said, all the noise, like the technology, like the tension in the world right now and everything. It's just so, it occupies your mind.
Yes.
Everything is like external, but then what you have like internally is what's important.
Yeah.
I love that.
And wouldn't it be nice to go home and love yourself at the end of the day?
I know, but like, what is it? Like, how do you love yourself? Like, what does it feel like, right? All the self, like, criticism, the judgment,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
noise.
I feel like a lot of people don't believe in mental health for the reason that they think mental health means having no problems, but it's about dealing with those problems. That's
Yeah.
what we're
Yeah.
trying to push forward.
But I also think that's why people
You know?
don't believe in it. It's because they don't want to deal with the
Yeah,
problems.
it's because they
There you
want to
go.
repress it.
There you go.
No, I think it's just for sure. I think this whole idea is like, especially in my family on my dad's side, like to tie it back to like Asian American, like they have this whole stigma of like, I need to be strong in front of everybody in my
Masculinity
family.
is a toxic
Yeah.
masculinity.
No, a little bit,
Yes.
but I
Yeah.
don't like tie it just to like the
Okay.
masculine traits. Both like all my aunts, my grandma, and she never talks about her feelings. I never how it is.
Yeah.
My mom
Yeah.
as well. It's just like, yeah, it's like I need to protect like the kids. They need to like not know what's going on right now. They need to focus on their joy, their
I
school,
see.
all that.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? I was doing this my independent research project is studying about this concept called superwoman schema. It's mostly it's first introduced in like the African American women because the culture is that they have to be strong women because they have to take care of people. They're over obligation and over like endurance and stuff like that. And it's really it's kind of just going back to what Bryan was talking about. Is like all like whether it's like women or men, just like people in general. In certain cultures, like they have this tendency to feel like they have to appear strong. They have to appear that they're superwoman, kind of like that.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
Absolutely.
yeah. I just had a research light bulb again.
I love these light
Tonight
bulbs.
is full of light bulbs.
No, that's good.
But yeah.
That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we love these little tangents. This is great.
We do have one last question. for you.
Okay.
last
Yes,
one.
let's do it.
And it would be, what are your suggestions for others who are considering pursuing a psychology degree?
Yeah, I remember I took some time answering this question last time. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. It's
Cut
not
that
true. My suggestion is to take your own time. Like, really take your own time to, like, talk to yourself, look in the mirror, give yourself some high five, and really ask yourself what you want. Ask yourself what brings you joy, what brings you meaning, and start from there, and then see which path, like, comes up for you. Because I feel like this is a pretty difficult path, because not everyone can just be there for someone, because it takes a lot of energy. I feel like if you know, like
does.
like if you therapize, I use that as a verb. If you like, if you know, in therapy sessions, you have 5 clients a day, I think that's a lot. Or like,
Yeah.
so it takes work to know how to compartmentalize your energy.
Oh, I love that word. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite words, by the
Yeah,
way.
exactly. I'm learning how to do that better because I feel like I don't do that enough. Like I
Oh,
just
I
I'm a
love it.
mess. Yeah, I think it's a very fun, like, important skill for therapists to have, because
Yeah.
once you're in the therapy session, it's the client's space. You're there for the client. You're not basically, you know, your true self. You're like kind of like, you know, how do I say this? Like you have an alter ego kind of. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to kind of put it on this.
Yeah, you have to put on this. Yeah,
because you're trying to come from the most unbiased position. 'Cause that's what they go
Exactly.
to you for. Because
Yeah.
if they went to a friend, then all friends have like an inherent bias already, and so you can't be like what you said. You have to work on yourself beforehand, because if you go into this session and they say something that's remotely similar to your life, you're gonna internalize that feeling.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
now remember, it's the suggestion that I got from another clinical psychologist, because she said, if you really want to go to this, you know, field, like becoming a therapist, like serving other people, you got to take your own time to focus on yourself first. Because if, like Bryan said, something comes up and it's triggering for you, then you are not unbiased anymore. Then you can't, like, that therapy space is broken. It's not You know, it's not for the client anymore because now you're coming out from your own personal life instead of coming for the client. So yeah, definitely like try therapy. I feel like it's the first step. It's hard. It's intimidating. I get it because it's, you know, it's like a first time for everything is always a little bit like difficult. But I feel like even if you don't go to therapy, it's fine. Just try to like adopt certain values into your life, and then take some time for yourself and be mindful. Mindfulness meditation. I don't know. I don't know if meditation works because I tried it before. It's really hard. But mindful in general, like mindfulness can be like right now when you're talking to your friends, like you're not thinking about anything else. You're just feeling the moment. Or like walking to classes in between. You're just like, let's just not think about what the class before or the class after, but let's just enjoy the steps I'm taking, enjoy the air in UCLA, enjoy the view for just 5 minutes. That's all it takes.
Yep.
Just be mindful, give yourself that time to like unwind, focus on yourself, kind of like combining everybody, like what everybody said today, I feel like is what my suggestion would be.
I love that. Deal with your
Deal with your
before you can deal with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
What would you say to people who say that they don't have the luxury of time? Because I feel like in the response, you said the word time a lot, and I think that's come up quite often.
That's what my boyfriend tells me too. I just don't have time to go to therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like there's always that 5 minutes for you to reflect. It doesn't have to be an hour session of therapy a week. It could just start small from like, that's, for instance, an argument happened or like an incident happened. Just switch your mindset. Like use this as a learning opportunity instead of reacting the same way that you used to. Use your mindfulness and then react to the situation differently and ask yourself, why am I acting this way? Is it coming from my projection? Is it coming from like insecurities? Is it coming from like something that I'm dealing with inside my demons? That's the first step. That's all it needs. Like just ask yourself that question and take that few seconds or few minutes to reflect on yourself. It doesn't have to be a whole hour of therapy session because not everybody could afford it if you don't have the insurance and also you don't have the time. But it really just, it's a attitude, I feel like. It's an attitude for you to like take away with you in any chapter of your life and anywhere. Because when it comes down to like, you know, like jobs or just like dealing with conflict and everything, I feel like as long as you cultivate that self-awareness because you are so aware with what you know, interact with situations, then when you're dealing with other conflicts and other situations in your life, you're going to react so much better too. It's just kind of like a win-win situation in every way, I feel like.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people adopt this like pessimistic point of view. And I think the idea of therapy scares a lot of people because especially within Asian American culture, like the idea of depression is such a negative and connotative word. Like I think the second you would find out that you're depressed, it's kind of overbearing. And I think a lot of people are scared of that. And they say I think the idea of you don't have enough time, like if you really wanted to do anything, if you really wanted to focus on your mental health, you really would.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's this idea, they're just avoiding it, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like that goes to another thing that I want to mention. And like going to therapy doesn't mean that you're trying to label your problem.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And like for a lot of people, it helps them to have a direction, like where I should work on. Oh, is it anxiety? Okay, what does anxiety look like? What does that mean? It just helps you understand yourself. It's a tool, you know? But I feel like a lot of people would use that as an excuse to justify their actions. Like, oh, I'm just depressed. I got diagnosed. Right? I hate that. I hate that. Like, yes, you're doing the work, you're going to therapy, get diagnosed, but that's not all it is. Like, it's what comes after it. And also it's not just about the name, like whatever whatever like mental disorder you have, it's not just that. It's about how you like interact with it after knowing that.
Yes.
Right? Because like for me, even like when I had my own like, you know, sessions and diagnosis, I'm like, okay, perfect. Now like I know what it is, a little bit more tangible, and I can manage it better. And I haven't had another anxiety attack in like over a year until recently. So, but you know, it's a cycle. It's just, progress is not linear, right? Learning is not linear. So it's okay. But like, I've seen progress and I'm like trying to learn how to give myself credit for acknowledging the progress that I have.
Yep.
So it's like you said, it's like, it's intimidating because people think like, it's what my dad said, because he said, if I go to therapy, I'm going to walk out of the clinic being labeled as,
Yep.
you know, a person that's suffering from depression.
Well, you know, this just while we have the space, like I feel like that is something a little bit wrong with the system where, you know, if you're going on an insurance, like in order for them to build the insurance, you really have to be labeled a certain, like to have,
Yeah.
whether I think it's between the first, I've been dropped by therapists multiple times because I couldn't fit the bill of either having depression or anxiety in my first few visits. And they've told me, hey, at this point, I can't see you anymore because I
That's
can't
so weird.
put you in a certain category, you know, and that's kind of what's wrong with the system as well, is if you know, that's what the DSM is for. It's to label people with certain, you know, if you have
I
depression, if
have
you have
a
anxiety.
love-hate relationship with DSM.
Oh, me too. I do too. So, you know, I think that is something wrong with like the way that we look at therapy is to treat mental health when it can prevent a lot of mental health issues. And I don't know how to fix that. Somebody give me some ideas, but you know, I think that, that's definitely, and that's what's preventing a lot of people from going to therapy. Like your dad, you know, if he goes to therapy after 2 sessions, he has to come out with a diagnosis or else he can't go in anymore for this therapy session. And
It's
that's
really interesting.
unless you have the money to really just hire somebody to talk to
Right.
and not, you know, actually diagnose you because you have to go through insurance.
I think it really depends on your insurance, because for what I have right now with UC Ship, it
Yeah.
doesn't have
UC Ship is a little bit, I think it's a little
it's a
bit
little bit different. I
different.
think it really depends on the insurance, and I totally agree. I feel like it's a systemic thing.
Yes.
And like we said, like this is a Western idea, right? And therapy kind of is a Western thing. And we know that America doesn't really have the best healthcare system. So I wonder how that happened. I wonder how this happened. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, it could be interconnected. It could. But I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's
Yeah, I mean, I think
Directly
it's also like they're kind of taking this like reactive approach instead
Yes.
of this proactive approach.
No,
Like, we should be
exactly.
putting it
We
out
love
there
that.
that like this idea of depression. Not all people. Some people are predisposed to depression, but
Yes.
not all people are
Yes.
No,
predisposed to
exactly.
depression. Yeah, and then as long as we put the idea out there, like people don't have to be getting there to be able to go to therapy. you know?
exactly. That's what we're trying to do here. And
I love it. I love it.
This also might sound weird, but I think therapy should actually work in people's favor because it should be detaching people from their mental disorders. Like, for example, if someone were to have depression, if they were to go to therapy and they were to find out that they had depression, instead of them, whenever the next, like, for example, depressive episode happens, they're able to recognize that that's because they have depression. It's not because it's who they are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's how
I
I've been
love
kind
that.
of viewing therapy recently.
Yeah, it's kind of like the label thing we talked
Yeah,
about.
it's the
right?
opposite of labeling it.
Yeah, like we're not supposed to use that to label people and then to make you internalize and think that you're like you're like, what did you say? Like you're broken. No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like the therapy that you're describing feels a lot like that, because it's like
Yep.
you have to be broken to be qualified to go to therapy, and that's
Yeah.
kind of up. And it's just like DSM. Like, how do you I always don't understand this. Like, how do you categorize people by saying, if you have these following symptoms for more than 6 months, like
you
two
have to
or
have
more,
2 of these and then
Yeah.
all of these.
it's like, yes, I get that. You do have to have like an organized way to categorize things, but also I don't think that's everything. You
Yeah.
know, back to balance again. It's like, yes, that could be a good tool depending on how you use the tool. And I feel like for a lot of practitioners, they should acknowledge that that's not the only way to give people
Yes.
therapy. And that's kind of sad. So
Yeah.
hopefully when we have our own little like spill the tea, what is it?
Yes, called Spill the Tea.
Like spill the tea, like therapy workshop / boba shop. We should definitely do this. Like,
Yes. I love it. Well, definitely
Manifesting
to be
it.
continued. We have a lot more to talk about.
yeah.
I think that's all the questions we have for you today, Lily.
All right, well,
I
thank
hope I
you.
gave you some stuff.
No, you did. I'm
Absolutely.
loving the vulnerability and just, you know, the openness to chat and getting more conversation going. So
I love the voice, everyone's voice in this headphone.
Right.
by the way. It just sounds so crisp.
we appreciate you being here.
I'm
and,
glad that I'm here.
So we have Lillian, Jocelyn, Bryan, and myself, Tim, and we are unwrapping the dumpling.
Unwrapping.
This is it.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.